a lot of teams there who we just don't know what they're going to deliver in the forthcoming campaign. One of those teams where you're going to spotlight now on the social, and that is Ipswich Town. So long under the stewardship of Mick McCarthy, part of the Talksport 2 commentary team this weekend. Now it's Paul Hurst who's in charge, who, indeed, of course, made the move from Shrewsbury during the summer. Let's speak to Ben Bloom, shall we, from the Blue Monday podcast about Ipswich Town. Ben, thanks for your time, mate. We really appreciate it.
Tom. Hi, Mark.
Listen, the new man is in charge. Mick is out. It's what many people wanted. You feeling positive?
Yes, we're feeling positive. The players having to have a little bit of a, let's say, recalibration from the previous manager's style to what Hurst wants them to do. We've seen that gradually working in the pre-season friendlies. I wasn't convinced at Barnet. I was more convinced at Milton Keynes, and some really good reviews from the West Ham friendly. So it looks as though Hurst's message is getting across, and we're going to see perhaps a bit more of an exciting brand of football at Portman Road this season.
Well, you can't ask for more than that, can you? Improvement. That's the way you want it to go. It's interesting. Ipswich is one of those clubs, much like Exeter's going to be this year as well, with Paul Tisdale going, and him embarking on a new career there. Is that it's been so much of the same thing for so long. It's quite kind of knowing where you stand in the scheme of things, Ben, isn't it? Because is there still that nagging out saying perhaps Mick McCarthy got absolutely the best out of this place that he can?
Well, we'll find out this season, Mark.
I know, the big question.
I disagree slightly. I think Tisdale left Exeter on a high. If I'm right, they lost in a playoff final, whereas
they did.
I think our previous manager, it became slightly farcical last season. New contract, no new contract, I'm leaving, teacup down on the table, I'm out of here. So I think the narrative's a little bit different, but you're totally right that we could fall flat on our faces, and I'm sure there'll be a certain Yorkshireman with some lovely veneers with a big smile on his face.
Yeah, I wonder who he's talking about.
Can we talk business, transfer business? Of course, it is the time for it. More outs than ins. You've been impressed by any of the ins?
Yes, I mean, the big signing obviously is Białkowski, the goalie who you would have seen with Poland at the World Cup in their squad. He signed a new contract, which is very important. He's a 3-time Player of the Year. So it looks like Evans is trying to take the sort of Preston type approach now. So Roberts is coming from Crawley, Edwards from Peterborough, Harrison from Bristol Rovers. I don't know how to pronounce this name. He came in yesterday. Donacien from
Accrington Stanley, yeah.
Perfectly done.
And strong links with Curtis Tilt from Blackpool and Caden Jackson. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Martin Waghorn, and I think a lot of Ipswich fans are not expecting him to still be on the books.
Really? Yeah.
Come at the end of the transfer window.
Is he a proper asset in terms of being sort of to get some money in?
Well, if Patrick Bamford is worth 10 million, who scored 15 goals in 3 seasons, then
that was quite a bar raiser, wasn't it? The Patrick Bamford move,
right?
Yes.
And Waghorn got, obviously, it is well documented, the most in terms of combined goals and assists, 16 goals, 11 assists last season. It would be such a shame to see him go, but Evans does seem to be spending the money and bringing in these young, hungrier, lower division players. And I think all Ipswich fans would say to Waghorn, you've been great, go and get a payday, and thank you very much.
So he's got to be, 28 years of age now, Martin Waghorn, probably the last big move of his career. It's about as hot as he's been. I mean, the Rangers spell was pretty decent, but doing it at Ipswich is more impressive. If we're talking about the kind of money, would you be able to then reinvest 15 million? Is that something that would happen, or would you be able to reinvest 7 and the rest of it disappears into the ether?
Depends when he's sold, Tom. If he's sold at 8.59 on August the 9th or whatever it is, then no, that's not going to get reinvested. We don't know whether they've already spent the money for Waghorn ahead of time on the players that have already come in. So we don't know, but we think if Traore from Borough ends up at Wolves, then Pulis needs a forward. It looks like the Derby thing is all dependent on Vidra, and the Leeds move collapsed. Sheffield United are still sneaking around there, but we don't think they can compete with Derby or Borough money-wise. And Borough will not want to start the season without Bamford or Traore and no other striker. So, and Waghorn obviously is from the northeast as well.
Ben, you touched on the fact that Paul Hurst obviously is bringing you something new to look at, and of course, that may be a major part of the conversation about where Mick McCarthy was with you, because of course, if you just use the table as a yardstick, things weren't too shabby. So, how will you think that the crowd react in terms of the team this year? Would they, for example, take a similar league position, but enjoy watching it a little bit more on a broad stroke?
Mark, I think they'd take a lower league position and enjoy watching it more.
Honestly, raising the bar low.
No. Honestly, I know that sounds very, very silly, but I sat there. I think there was 1 month I went to Bristol and we kind of lost 1-0, didn't really have a shot. Went to Birmingham, we lost 1-0, didn't have a shot. Then we went to Brentford and we lost 1-0 and we barely had a shot. And I don't make that much money, and you give up your Saturdays, and you kind of think, well, I'd rather lose 4-2 and have a go and have a bit of fun. And I know the previous manager sometimes can be a caricature of himself. He's obviously a very clever man and a very successful man, but I think the pragmatic nature of the football had really worn off. So I think if Hurst brings in a new team, if young guys, Kenlock, Andre Dezelle, Josh Emmanuel, if these young guys are introduced and we have a cup run perhaps, which we never had under the previous manager, I think people will accept mid-table. And you said about the crowd, Mark. Well, I think there's a big thing. Let's look at the average attendances at the end of the season, and I think that will tell a story as well.
Fair enough.
Ben, thanks for your time, mate.
Cheers, Ben.
Hope you have a good season.
Thanks,
We'll
Mark.
speak to you
Lovely
again.
to speak to you both.
Ben Bloom from the... Thanks a million, Ben.